we have done is agreed to process as quickly as possible, hopefully by the end of 2016, the 10,000 privately sponsored refugees in the inventory, because we really appreciate and welcome the enthusiasm of Canadians to sponsor these refugees. And so we're doing everything we can to expedite that process.
Praised abroad but under pressure at home, Canada's warm welcome of Syrian refugees is a success at first glance. But some private groups are still waiting for their families to arrive, and that's caused a lot of frustration and confusion. Following an outcry, Immigration Minister John McCallum says he's committed to loosening restrictions on the private sponsorship of Syrian refugees. We're back with the Sunday Scrum. Susan Riley, John Ibbotson are in Ottawa. Martin Patriquin is in Montreal. So, John, there are the government-sponsored refugees and then the privately sponsored ones. Do you think that the government is managing both as well as it could be?
Well, I mean, I think we need to step back and look at the bigger picture. There are very few countries. I think, in fact, there was a report that showed only 3 or 4 countries on the planet are taking in the number of Syrian refugees that the United Nations would like to see them doing. And Canada is one of them. So this is a ball that we have picked up and run with. And the initial job of getting 25,000 people in by the end of February was nothing short of heroic. I mean, I do know public servants who canceled their Christmas and asked to be seconded over to immigration so they could work the phones and help expedite the files. It really was a case where the Ottawa worked hard, the public service worked incredibly hard in order to make these very ambitious goals happen. So there's a bit of a hangover once the 25,000 arrive. People down tools, go back to their original jobs. The quotas were more modest, but still you have hundreds of thousands, millions of people displaced in the Middle East who want to get here, and plenty of Canadians willing to step up and take responsibility for settling them. I suppose it's simply a question of security checks and other checks that need to be processed in the Middle East in order to make these people available. So they decided to slow down the process. People howled, and now they're speeding up the process again. Overall, I wouldn't want to make this temporary check much of a blemish on what is overall a really impressive achievement on this Liberal government's part.
Susan, what do you think? Because, the message from the Trudeau government, right, was, open your homes, we're a welcoming people, and then all of a sudden people say, okay, and they start renting homes, or they start renting apartments, they're all ready, and then they're like, well, where's the family?
Yes, we just saw John McCallum dodge a very dangerous bullet with their quick reversal. I think that particularly a lot of these donors are very Liberal-friendly constituencies, and as you say, they put a lot of sweat, blood, and tears and money into getting places ready for their families, and then to be told, well, you might have to wait till 2017. It was turning ugly, and I think the Liberals very quickly sensed that and reversed course, and I think that's interesting. Among the other casualties, it forced me to rewrite a column I'd already written. Yeah, I know. I started essentially saying that the honeymoon glow is starting to fade because of partly the anger over this refugee situation. They, as I say, quickly stepped into the breach. That in itself, their reversal this week was really interesting, and so we've become unaccustomed to government, especially over the last 10 years during the Harper regime, to a government saying, you know what, that we made a mistake and we're changing course. Normally, with the Harper people at least, they dig their heels in and say, no, we're not wrong, you're wrong. So that in itself probably any loss or any criticism that the Liberals might have received, I think they very deftly deflected it.
All right, we have to quickly move on, Marty. Sorry, I would like to hear your point on this, but we got to move on to the NDP. We know that their convention is next weekend, and we know that there will be a leadership review. Do you think the NDP is in a good place right now? What's your sense?
Of course not. They're in an awful place.
No, I know they're in an awful place in the polls, and
but existentially they're in a bad place. Everybody's like, well, should Tom Mulcair stay or go? I think the good news is that for Tom Mulcair is that I think he's going to be the next leader. He's going to remain leader. That is. The bad news is I think the problems that the NDP have go far beyond what any leader could possibly do. Look, they put everything into that last election, and now you have a situation whereby whereby the Liberal government has essentially taken over that leftward swath of policy and politics and run with it and gone with it on their own. They're faced with the situation whereby Tom Mulcair can either torque left and torque the party back left and then, you know, remain as unelectable as they always were before that, or go to the center. And the Liberals are already there. They're in a heck of a position.
Susan, is Tom Mulcair the problem or the solution?
Tom Mulcair is going to be on probation for 2 years. I think that's what's going to happen. In 2018, they're having another leadership contest. And who knows? I mean, you know, the smart money would say, well, Mulcair has basically finished. He's done. He's too old. They're going to be looking for a fresh face. But the smart money's been wrong so many times on so many things. So he may have to run for his job again in 2018.
John, should we all just take a breath and say it's been 6 months, parties go through this, a lot can change in a few years?
Yes, absolutely. We should, as a matter of fact. I mean, it's a trough for the NDP. Not only did they lose the last election, but they're in a lot of trouble in the Manitoba election, are probably going to lose that. We are in, brace yourselves, a world in which the only NDP government in the country is in Alberta. Just, you know, get your head around that.
Who would have predicted that a year ago?
No, yeah, exactly. Daryl Bricker and I wrote a book called The Big Shift several years ago, in which we said the politics in this country was polarizing between the dominant party of the left and the dominant party of the right. We thought the dominant party of the left was going to be the NDP. We were wrong. It appears that the dominant party of the left is the Liberal Party. So there is a crowded field over on the left. But all of that said, and Daryl and I would be the first to point this out, don't make predictions too far in advance, because things can change. The Conservatives, for example, are non-existent anywhere in Canada right now, but they're probably going to win in Manitoba. They're on the rebound in other parts of the country. No matter what you think is the peak or the trough, if you wait, it's just the Canadian weather. If you wait a year, it'll be completely different.
But Marty, I mean, isn't part of the problem, you know, you could argue that Tom Mulcair definitely brought the party to the center. You know, he was a former Liberal cabinet minister in Quebec, and that a lot of NDPers, they're left, they're social democrats, they're progressives. They are people that are not comfortable with that. So if you have an entire party, not the entire party, but a huge portion of your party that's not comfortable with being in the center, then how do you move forward?
You know what I'd like to see with Tom Mulcair is do a similar role what Rona Ambrose is doing right now at the CPC. Sort of be a bit of a caretaker, get things in order, and then hand it off to someone who might be, you know, ready to run another election. The problem is I don't think Tom Mulcair is that guy for the reasons that you just outlined, and also I don't think Tom Mulcair is a placeholder type of politician. He's the real deal, and all the ego and et cetera that goes with that. So, I mean, but again, I come back to it. I don't think it's necessarily the leader in the question. It's where do you stake the party to sort of differentiate yourself from the Liberals.
So, Susan, let me ask you, because you said you think that he's going to be on probation, but that's what you think the party will decide. But what do you think the party should do? Should they keep him on probation, or should they get rid of him and get an interim leader, or find someone fresh and new?
Well, they don't have anybody fresh and new. Mm-hmm. They don't have anybody clamoring. There's been no signs of organization. There's a lot of discontent with Mr. Mulcair, but nobody has so far stepped forward. I think there's an interesting parallel, or comparison, I should say, to be drawn between the left in Canada and the Bernie Sanders impact in the United States. And I think one of the major differences between Bernie Sanders and Tom Mulcair, both of whom are old, by the way, they're on the wrong side of the age divide, is that Bernie Sanders has been consistent, daring and consistent, you know, clinging to the same ideas, arguably delivering the same speech for 40 years. Mm-hmm. Mr. Mulcair, on the other hand, has looked like a weather vane. I mean, he's in a really uncomfortable position now. Does he defend his no deficits line, or does he accept that deficits have been... He miscalculated.
And that's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. But he misjudged the Canadian appetite for progressive policies, and Justin Trudeau took a gamble, and Justin Trudeau won. I don't think Mulcair will ever recover from that.
All right, I think he's 10 years younger than Bernie Sanders, if I'm right.
I was just going to say, yeah, you're being a little harsh.
Yeah,
no,
John...
but there's nothing wrong with being old. I'm old. I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that that's not necessarily the only factor.
But I think one thing very quickly we have to remember is, and not forget, the Liberals ran on the left. and one on the left. And then they moved further to the left. They're further left now than they were when they were running. They will eventually have to tack to the right. There are certain fundamentals of government that can't be ignored. And 3 years from now, you will find that the Liberals are probably going to be in trouble on questions of deficit, on questions of taxation, on question of program delivery. That will provide an opportunity for the NDP once again to stake out the territory to the left of the Liberals.
10 seconds for you, John. What do you think of the fact that the NDP in Manitoba is about to fall? I mean, they've been in power, oh boy, you helped me with the math, many years.
It's four mandates already, and I think it's just cyclical. In 10 seconds, I would say what goes around comes around, and it's for the NDP, and it's for the Conservatives, and it's for the Liberals, and pundits like us ought to remember that, especially me.
I should say, you never know what's going to happen. I should say, I don't presume to know what's going to happen tomorrow, but that's certainly the way it looks. Thank you all very much. All the time we have for this week. Susan Riley in Ottawa. You're not that old, Susan. John Ibbotson of the Globe and Mail.
As old as you.
And Martin Patriquin of Maclean's.